mind was not actually with a sport coach, but with an administrator. And I would have scheduled meetings with administrators every so often, my supervisor. And this one meeting was right after. No, I never did briefs under my suit. I can't get onto the bar. Just my suit. But this meeting was about a month after our men's and women's basketball had just won the conference title at the same time, same venue. It was the first time the women had ever done it in school history. It was my third year with them. The women also had the lowest injury rate in the athletic department. That team was bought in. The kids loved it. They were training hard. They were doing a great job. The men won the title that year. It was actually their second year in a row. It was also my third year working with them. So we were having a ton of success. We had in the same spring that the men won their first title. John won the national title, our thrower. I want to say it was that same semester we had the most track kids we ever had go to regionals. I think we had the most ever that we had go to nationals, possibly. There was things were going very well from my perspective. Okay, bud, the fucking light screen. And the meeting was about a month after both basketball teams won, and the first thing out of his mouth was, well, this coach is concerned you're not at practice enough to watch practice. And then the whole meeting, it was like an hour-long meeting of how I was going to appease this coach and coddle them, I don't go into meetings looking for people to kiss my ass and stuff, but I remember going to my office after that meeting, and for the first time since I was 14 years old, I kind of sat there and thought, is this really what I want to do? Because it gets to a point where, what the fuck is the problem, So, I'd been at the same school for 10 years, and I had as a young coach, I came in under very good strength coaches. And unfortunately, I saw some of them pushed out because people in the department thought they were, abrasive or hard to get along with, or didn't like the way they coached. So my reaction to that for my entire career was to be very, I would if a coach wanted to do something, we would do it, right? Because I didn't want to, I saw how the system worked, and I didn't want to be another casualty of that. So I was very careful not to piss people off. I was very, mind my P's and Q's, do what coaches wanted. So that's how, now that I'm out, I can be kind of a smart ass and talk a little bit of shit, but I was never like that when I was coaching. It was always, coach wanted something, we did it. And that's how it was. So, but anyways, that was very one of my most frustrating meetings, but the way I handled it was just, okay, we're going to do this. I'm going to go to practice. We're going to, whatever coach wants, we're going to do, blah, blah, blah. And that was it. Most frustrating with a coach would be kind of a similar situation. The meetings with this coach, almost every other meeting with this coach was them questioning my knowledge, questioning what I was doing, and not from a point of trying to learn or trying to educate themselves, It was flat out disrespectful, and I ate a lot of shit from this particular coach, because like I said before, I had saw what happened to some of my mentors and stuff. So, you know, typical meeting, I would go up there and eat my shit and, you know, say, okay, we're gonna do whatever, and, you know, you want to do this, we'll do that. And what had happened with this team, we had all the success and they won their first title and had these low injuries, and then what up, Deppin? And then so they won their title and they came back the next semester, and she wanted her team to train with this private sector strength coach, and the university let her bring him into the school, and then the kids were going over there, and I went to her with concerns in the fall about how their performance was going to fall off, and all the while I had the athletes coming to me saying they didn't like the training, they were starting to get beat up. You know, the athletes were coming to me like, what the hell's going on? We don't like this stuff. But I had to keep them out of it. So, you know, I went through all that, and then, you know, there was a point where I went to the coach and I said, I'm concerned that your kids are going to start getting hurt and their performance is going to drop off. And because here's what happens: the law of supercompensation takes about 3 to 4 weeks. Well, the same thing happens with shitty training. So if you're overtraining, you're doing shitty training, that will start to show itself 3 to 4 weeks later. And I went to her and the athletic trainer and we all had a meeting, and I expressed my concerns, and she blew it off like I didn't know what I was talking about. And sure enough, at 4 weeks, everybody started feeling like shit, and the athletic trainer started seeing more and more people because they were training like shit and getting the shit kicked out of them. So that happened, and then season went on, and they basically went to the tournament and shit the fucking bed. The training that year was fucking basically taken out of my hands. And then, so we went into a meeting after season in the spring, and she said something to... So basically what had happened was the team was taken from me, and I expressed concerns to her that, you know, it wasn't going to end well, and I wanted to get them back with me and doing stuff, you know, and they did come back later in the season, but at that point the fucking damage had been done. They went to the tournament, shit the fucking bed, got physically... The other team that we got beat by was a better fucking weight room team. They were bigger and fucking stronger than us. So what I thought was going to happen happened. And then after the season, I go in to meet with the coach to see what we're going to, you know, it's off season again, see what we're going to do. And she's like fucking questioning me again. And she said something, and her whole staff was there. And I swear to God, half these meetings, I feel like I was trying to be provoked. I feel like I was being fucked with to get a reaction, so that this coach would then have a reason to fucking get me out of there. So again, I was always very cautious to be very calm and cool. And she said something to the effect of, I just don't understand how your training is going to help my athletes. And I sat there for a second, and I glanced over at her assistants that were on the couch, and they were all fucking kind of sitting there like, where the fuck is this going? And I took a deep breath, and I said, Coach, for whatever reason, you don't seem to believe me, so you should ask your players. Because while all this shit was going on, the players are telling me they don't like it, they feel like shit. But I almost blew the fuck up. There was a split second where it was like the cartoons where the fucking temperature thing like flies up and explodes at the top. And it was like I could feel it coming up my fucking neck and my head, and it almost fucking popped. But I took a deep breath, and I just looked at her and I said, ask your players. ask your players what the training is done. I said, and then I kind of said, listen, when we won last year, their training was going great. They did a great job. They had the lowest injury rate. I said, and now we're banged up and this and that, and it didn't matter. It didn't do anything. But that was the most frustrated I ever was. And looking back, my fucking demise was in the works even before that. So that's really didn't matter what I said at that point. But yeah, just so that was sort of the answer to the question. That was the most fucking frustrated I've ever been. Like, I wanted to fucking like, I was fucking pissed. That was bullshit. And not that I don't expect anybody to kiss my ass. I like people to ask questions. I like to educate people. I like to, but it was like, if you're going to quiz me, if you're going to fucking question me all the time, but you have no clue, you're somebody who barely squeaked through school on a fucking communications degree, and you're going to fucking question me all the time, when I've done what I've done with your kids. And there was a lot of fucking disrespect going on. It wasn't a situation where she was asking questions to help her team. She was trying to fucking just be an asshole. And she succeeded. She was a fucking asshole. So that was the most frustrated I ever was. Yeah, that was pretty bad. I ate some shit in that fucking office for sure. Thoughts on deficit deadlifts? I think they're a good exercise. Overall, a good exercise. Obviously, probably a little more advanced movement. Do them with someone that understands how to conventional. Probably shouldn't even say conventional. Just do a deadlift from the floor real well. Understands the cueing and positioning. And then you don't have to go crazy deficit. Especially with some of your bigger guys. Not to say you can't. But start off low, like 1 or 2 inches. I had a friend who was a real strong puller, and he was his deadlift kind of took off for a while towards the end there, and I said, "What have you been doing different that you don't feel like is really helping?" And he said he would do all his speed pulls. He was a sumo puller, and he said he would do all his speed pulls from a 1/2 inch or 1 inch deficit. So just that little bit of extra pull, he felt was really helping him. So yeah, I think it's a good exercise. Like anything else, use it sparingly. Put it in, when it should be there with the right populations. But like I said, the right populations. There's certain people that's just going to fuck up more than it's going to help. Like for instance, for me, 10 years ago, I think it was a good building exercise for me on, let's say, max effort. Whereas now I think if I do it just the way I'm built, and my mobility and stuff right now, probably not a good max effort movement for me. Because it's gonna fuck me up for a couple of weeks, really. So for me, it's probably not the best thing right now, where I'm at. But that's not to say I'm not going to do it once in a while. You know what I mean? So it's a good exercise. Just put some thought into it, where you're putting it in and who you're using it with. So that's my thoughts. Overall, it's good. In your squats, you sit back and then drop down into the hole to get some rebound, or just continue back. Personally, and this is canvas, I like to, with a canvas suit, for me, I almost have to focus on sitting back first, because that's kind of a thing that I'll kind of fuck up. If I don't push back on it first,
The word privacy is getting thrown around a lot by big tech companies. Their business depends on vacuum.
then we got the fucking
for their financial gain. You deserve technology that respects
the fucking gay dude blowing kisses, and I say you gotta push back first. When I'm squatting in my canvas squat suit at a powerlifting meet, if I don't push back first, so that's kind of my first thought on my descent, is to start back. And then you'll kind of feel there's a point where you can't push back anymore, then it's going to be straight down. So personally, I like to kind of break it up into two movements almost, because if I don't overemphasize that pushing back, the suit will kind of suck me forward. It'll kind of pull my hips forward. So personally, that's how I like to do it. And same with squatting. You'll find with beginners, when you're teaching them to box squat, that's a real common thing, right? They want to sit straight down and their knees shoot forward. So overemphasize it and break it down into two movements almost, where reach back until you feel like they can't reach back anymore, and then bend your knees. That's worked really well for me with athletes and kind of beginners in the past. Or even like if you're free squatting, like if you box squat a lot and then you're kind of switching over to some free squatting for variation or whatever, they'll kind of forget, like, there's a point where you got to bend your knees. So when they get to that point where they feel like they can't sit back anymore or they can't get depth, tell them when they hit that point, just bend your knees a little bit. And your knees might go forward a little bit, but for the most part, you're already started back. So you're kind of, it's nothing to worry about. So just, you get down there to the bottom, bend your knees a little bit, and then hammer it on the way up. You'll be good. I always think if there's something you fuck up on an exercise or you're teaching, like your key teaching points, you almost have to overemphasize those. So people, I think you can take cues too far or too literal, but the whole point is to fix something that's fucked up, so a lot of time you have to overemphasize it. But that could be bad too, because somebody that doesn't, that's where I think we get people sitting back too far on box squat, or tucking the elbows too much on bench press. It's different watching on, hearing about it, or being under the bar and trying to learn it. There's a little bit of a disconnect there. Favorite cues for reverse hyper. Relax your glutes. Make sure the athlete's relaxing their glutes. Keep your knees straight and locked out. Toes up. So toes toward your shin. Dorsiflexed. I usually don't say dorsiflex because kids don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Toes up, heels apart, knees straight. Like flex your quads. That will make a huge difference. If there's a little bit of bend in the knee and you straighten that out, they will get a much bigger stimulus on the hamstrings and in the low back than they were before. So knees straight, feet apart, feet straight. And a lot of times when they're first learning, they won't be able to relax when the legs are going down, and you want to relax in the bottom to get that stretch. So sometimes I'll even go over and without any weight on, let their legs hang down, and if you can't get them to relax, like I'll even like push on their low back, like relax, like let that come down. So those are the go-tos. Honestly, like to be strong, I think what's more important, to be strong in the deadlift after squatting and benching, I think a lot of that has to do more with just being in shape and being able to go through, like you have to have, be careful when I say like in shape is relative. I think you have to have enough training volume. Donnie's talked about this, like, so you're not dying by the time it's time to pull at the meet. And I've experienced this. It was one of my meets after a shoulder injury, I feel like. Yeah, it was my last meet. And so here's the thing: if you want to be strong on deadlifts, I think there's a couple big factors. Your training volume has to be high enough on a consistent basis where the meat's going to kick the shit out of you, but you've got to be in shape enough where you can get through the meet and not be smoked to the point where you can't pull. Like you should be able to be in good enough shape to muster up some strength for 3 more lifts, basically. But there's also a factor of momentum. I don't care who you are, I don't care how mentally fucking tough you are or any of that shit. If you're having a shitty fucking meet and you're limping through the meet and you think you're gonna go have a big fucking pull to save the day or salvage a somewhat decent total, that's fucking hard. Not to say it can't be done, but it's momentum is a big factor. I know for me personally, but if you're having a real shitty day and then you think you're going to go pull like a PR deadlift, it's probably not going to happen. For most people, for 90% of people, there's every once in a while you'll see something crazy happen, but in general, it really helps to have a little bit of momentum going. So that's being smart on your attempt numbers, your deadlift, your picks. Start out with a low deadlift, smoke it, feel good about it, and then keep going. And I've been in meets too where I probably opened a little heavy on deadlift, or my first pull I kind of got out of position and made it way harder than it should be. Then you got 2 more, and that's when it starts to fuck with you. So yeah, make sure you're in shape enough and have some momentum. Maybe not so much the circle max stuff. Did I like to push volume up with accessory movements? Yes. I like to keep the main lift relatively low, which is why I like the max effort method. Build work capacity on your speed days. It's lighter weight, you can keep the rest periods down, it will help get you in shape. And then push volume on the accessory because the movements are smaller and I feel like they're not going to beat you up as much. Which is why I like the system personally. That's why I think it's really good for athletes. If you're going to try to push that volume with all big compound movements, I think you're going to be in trouble eventually. And I've seen it happen. So yeah, I've never understood, and I understand there's times you go to the gym and you're beat up, you feel shitty, motivation's low, I get it, but for the most part, like, if you're training, you should be doing it because you like to. So why not do the accessory work? I've never understood that. Like, I just want to bench and squat and leave. What the fuck, man? Like, the other stuff should be cool too.